Hi, welcome to the Whitey Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm gonna review slash just talk about the film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure that came out in 1988. And I'm going to try to explain this film for anyone who's never seen it before and kind of review it again a bit, I guess. I of course saw this when I was like in elementary school age. You're talking about late 80s, early 90s. I first saw this shortly after it came out. Didn't see it in theaters. So I must have seen it at VHS, which was like brand new at the time, VHS tapes. And so let's say the day that this film starts is Thursday. You have Bill and Ted, which is Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, who are high school students who are very much in the vein of Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High meets Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles. They're like the dude, rah, whoa, that thing. And they're not very bright, although they have wits and conviction, and they're on the verge of failing history class. If they fail history class, or more specifically, whichever one is Bill or Ted, which Keanu Reeves, his dad plays a cop who's very strict and authoritarian. And then Alex Winter's dad, I guess you don't really get to know that terribly well that I recall, but the only thing about him is he's dating a girl that Bill and Ted went to high school with, like she was a senior when they were freshmen. And he's like, "Hi, Missy." Mom, because I guess that's his stepmom now. But if they fail a oral test, the history of the town they live in, San Dimas, California, they have to give an oral report, historical oral report, and if they fail it, if they anything but get an A, I think it is, they're going to fail the course. And in turn, Keanu Reeves is going to have to go to military school in Alaska, and then they won't be able to start their band. So the very first scene, they're in the garage and they're playing guitar, but they got a drum kit, they got amps, they got a camera, and all they know how to do is like say that they're the Wild Stallions very enthusiastically. That's the name of the band, the Wild Stallions. And they spell it like Y instead of an I. But they can't actually play, so they don't know E chord from G from A. I imagine they certainly aren't going to know music theory. So there are two guys who just sit there, go do on a guitar, having no idea what they're doing, but they want to be famous. And you might say, dude, that doesn't exist. Like, you got to learn how to play guitar to be in a band. I know a guy who is just like that. It happens. So they don't know how to play their instruments, but they want to be famous rock stars. And then, unbeknownst to them, like 800 years in the future, somehow, and you never find out how, they're almost like prophets for the people in the future. So in the same way that you had Jesus, who is either prophet of God and or ever they did 2,000 years ago, and now you have Christians, they have spawned a whole culture and following that, like, the way you'd say, God be with you, and be like, oh, and with you. Their thing is like, be cool, dudes. And then they pretend to air guitar. Or they air guitar, not pretend to. Okay. And so a guy named Rufus, played by George Carlin, the comedian, and he's been in a few films, comes back is sent back in time to prevent them from failing this history exam and then keeping Keanu Reeves from being sent to Alaska to military school by passing this history exam so that they can go on to create this great song that is like the equivalent of Jesus in the future. I don't know if that made sense. I have no clue. But that's what happens in the film. So Rufus shows up in a time machine that looks like a phone booth. And then their future selves from that day, who are halfway through the adventure they're about to go on, come and convince them to go with Rufus. So they do, and what they have to do is go back in history, or their plan to come up with is to go back in history And so they can go back in history and anywhere in the world, apparently. So they go back in time and they run into Billy the Kid. They end up saving his life from getting killed while playing a card, cards, getting caught cheating at cards or something, and a whole bar fight ensues. And then a bunch of guys are chasing Billy the Kid, and they're gonna shoot him just as they hop in the time machine and go away. And then Billy the Kid's like, "You saved my life, rah!" Then they go to ancient Greece, and they have like a phone book and so if you need to go to, at one point they run into Napoleon in France at a battle, and so you put in digits in the phone and make the phone call, and that sends you to France during the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon, just as a battle is breaking out, they show up with the phone booth time machine, and then everybody goes to shoot at them, understandably so. And then, but that somehow sucks Napoleon into the vortex of the world where all the different tubes or something send you from point A to point B. So he ends up on top of the time machine. They go, something happens at their hometown. Something about Ted or Bill. I think Keanu Reeves has to remember to wind his watch, even though it's like a digital watch. And so then they pick up Socrates, Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc. And the first 2 or 3 times there's like a buildup. So when they go to meet Billy the Kid, there's like, it's all about 7 or 8 minutes, about 10 minutes from them walking into a saloon in 1874. They meet Billy the Kid. They end up, running for their lives. They escape. Then Socrates. And then once you get past, there's a third one where they go back to time of Henry the Eighth or Seventh, and there's 2 hot girls there. They end up putting on the knights suits because they're in a big castle, and it's the knights and the kind of thing. And then somehow, when Keanu Reeves falls down the stairs, he falls out of his suit, but then a guy stabs it, and then the Alex Winter thinks he's dead, but then he's not dead, and then they go to behead these guys because a dude saw them in the time machine, and so they think they're demons, so you got to behead them. But then the 2 guys are supposed to behead them. It turns out it's Socrates and Billy the Kid, and so they save Bill and Ted, and then they pick. So they got Billy the Kid, they got Socrates, they got Napoleon, and in the story kind of developed that process where they got there, and then you just hit the fast forward button. So they pick up Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, Sigmund Freud. And then when Napoleon got sucked into the thing, they end up leaving Napoleon Bonaparte with Keanu Reeves' younger brother, but he doesn't know what to do with this, and so Bill and Ted, Alex Winter hands him like $50. So the next day, while Bill and Ted are still adventurous, they go to like the water park, and Napoleon doesn't want to stop riding the rides, and he's like pushing kids out of the way. He's acting like a child. And then at some point they end up at the mall, and the guy I forgot was Beethoven, and so he's sitting there playing the keyboards. Of course, it was the '80s, and so it's like it's all product placement keyboards, product placement cameras, that kind of thing. So it's these historical figures at the very base level. Here's Abraham Lincoln, and all he does is give a speech, and you got Joan of Arc. And then at one point they have a bunch of chores to do, Bill and or Ted. So all these historical figures are helping them clean the toilet and vacuum and shit. Something over there at the mall, shenanigans, and then at the end of the film, they somehow they do almost like a rock concert of a oral history. I imagine they pass because they have all these historical figures talking about history and stuff. And then at the end of the movie, Rufus is there with 2 hot chicks, and they get started on the band or something. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. I really liked this film when I was a kid. Watching it now, it's odd because it's a comedy. It's a goofball comedy, but everything that's presented to you about these historical figures, it's so surface level. It's like, you go back to the Old West. So what's going to happen? A card game, somebody gets called on cheating, leads to fisticuffs. You get all the tropes, all the staples you see from the Old West. Bill and Ted get thrown across the table, and then they're gonna hang them high, and they barely escape. And it's like maybe in 1988 he hadn't seen this before, and so I was like, it was new and hip and fresh and fun. And at least as a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, I had never seen it before, so I thought it was great. Now you've seen it all done 5,000 times since. So someone getting thrown and sliding across the table at the saloon, you've seen that 750 times in your life. So watching this again, I'm like, eh. And then, Billy Kid, he's going to play cards. Historically speaking, that's accurate. Billy the Kid was a card player that did end up getting him into a fight with a guy named Wendy Cahill, who he ended up shooting and killing. So, there's that. But I didn't enjoy it at all. I skipped through the whole thing. But again, I know how it ends. I remember how it ends. I remember Napoleon at the water park. I remember Joan of Arc, who's, a cute lady. The actress they got to play her is cute. I thought that then, I think that now. But I don't know. It's dated is kind of the issue. It's all been done since 100 times. Every kind of joke, every kind of whimsical one-liner, you know. But maybe in 1988, you hadn't seen something quite like this. And so the phone booth with the electrical effects, and it goes to the ground, and then you're like going down like tunnels or like tubes and the world in betweeny and time travel. And you're like, wow, I've never seen like something like that before. And I've seen a lot better since. But so at the time, it might have been really cool, with the effects and the jokes and the bits but you just seen it all. I've seen it all since, so it's hard to look at this one afresh, and instead it's like, I've seen this before. The film itself, and then all the concepts many times. So, but I remember it well from my youth. So, if you haven't seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, go check it out. If nothing else, it's harmless. There's nothing offensive here. At one point, Bill and Ted go to hug each other, and they're like, "Oh, fag!" Ah, they hug each other anyway. It's like the one thing that PC culture wouldn't approve of today. Other than that, it was a pretty chill movie. So, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Go check it out. It's fair enough. If you haven't seen it before, you'll probably enjoy it a lot more than me watching it for the 500th time. So, that's my review on that, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.